It finally happened, the moment everyone feared but nobody expected this soon. Cleveland Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski completely lost it in front of the entire team, unleashing a screaming tirade at rookie sensation Shedeur Sanders that echoed across the practice field and sent shockwaves through the entire NFL. Those three brutal words, "leave if you want," weren't just an outburst. They were a declaration that shattered locker room trust, split the roster down the middle, and ignited a firestorm of controversy that might derail the Browns season before it even begins. Because what went down wasn't your typical heated exchange between a coach and a young player. It was the breaking point of a culture war that's been simmering in Cleveland since draft night. And now the entire football world is watching to see if the Browns are about to implode from the inside. It all started right after practice, when Shedeur Sanders calmly walked up to Stefanski near midfield. No shouting, no arrogance, just a straightforward question about why Dillon Gabriel kept getting first-team reps despite Sanders lighting up preseason with better numbers. He mentioned his completion percentage, his touchdown to interception ratio, even his quarterback rating. He wasn't demanding the job, he was asking for transparency. But instead of a conversation, Stefanski exploded, his voice cutting across the entire facility. Staff, trainers, even rookies froze in place as he jabbed his finger into Sanders' chest and bellowed, "Nobody is above the team, not you, not anyone." And when Sanders tried to defend himself with just 5 words, "I'm just asking for fairness," that's when Stefanski's composure snapped completely. Veins bulging, face red, screaming the now infamous phrase, "Leave if you want, nobody is stopping you." And in that single moment, the entire practice shifted from routine drills to a public meltdown that instantly fractured the Browns' locker room. The second those words left Stefanski's mouth, the entire field went silent. Veterans who had seen everything in this league suddenly froze mid-drill. Rookies kept their heads down, afraid to even blink. Offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt rushed in trying to separate coach from quarterback, while defensive captain Myles Garrett quietly put a hand on Sanders' shoulder and guided him toward the locker room. The witnesses say the atmosphere felt like a funeral. Nobody dared speak because everyone knew this wasn't just another heated practice moment. This was a line crossed that couldn't be undone. Sanders didn't yell back, didn't escalate. He just turned and walked away without showering, without changing, without even showing up to his required media availability. And that silence spoke louder than any words could. One lineman reportedly said, "That's when we knew this was different. He doesn't just walk away." And right there in that moment, it became clear to everyone in Cleveland that the locker room was no longer united. It was split wide open. This wasn't just about one practice argument. It was about a power struggle that had been brewing since draft night. Because Kevin Stefanski represents old school authority, 4 years in Cleveland, a Coach of the Year award, a playoff run built on structure and discipline. His entire philosophy is simple. You earn your spot through work, film, and patience. But Shedeur Sanders didn't arrive in Cleveland like any ordinary 5th rounder. The moment his name was called, Jimmy Haslam practically anointed him the future of the franchise. The ownership had already chosen their star before Stefanski even evaluated him, and that shadow has been hanging over every practice rep, every quarterback meeting, every decision Stefanski makes. To him, Gabriel represents meritocracy, waiting your turn, learning the system, while Sanders represents outside influence and pressure, an acceleration of the process that Stefanski has fought to control. So when Sanders calmly questioned the reps, Stefanski wasn't just hearing a rookie, he was hearing the voice of ownership itself. And that's why his temper detonated in public. It wasn't about fairness, it was about authority being ripped out of his hands. And in that instant, the Browns weren't just a team with a quarterback controversy, they were an organization at war with itself. When you strip away the politics and look at the numbers, the debate isn't even close. Sanders has been torching the preseason with a 73% completion rate, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and multiple game-winning drives that had the stadium on its feet. His arm strength creates explosive plays that change momentum in seconds, while his mobility extends drives that should be dead. Defensive coaches are on record saying, "You just can't simulate what this kid brings." Meanwhile, Gabriel is steady but uninspiring, 64% completions, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks, His conservative style avoids mistakes, but it also caps the offense. He's efficient in structure, but lacks the spark that separates good from great. And the locker room knows it. Younger players whisper that the best guy isn't starting. Veterans defend the process, but everyone sees the same stat sheets. Everyone sees who's making the highlight throws in practice. And when your teammates and your fans are staring at proof every single day, it becomes impossible to sell patience over production. The truth is simple. The numbers scream Sanders is ready now, and that reality is fueling the storm that just blew up in Cleveland. The second word got out. The internet detonated. Hashtag Shedeur was trending nationwide within hours. Clips from practice leaked onto Twitter. Grainy sideline footage dissected frame by frame on ESPN like it was the Zapruder film. National analysts flooded the airwaves with hot takes, while ex-players lined up to declare what the Browns should do. Fans split down the middle, some demanding Stefanski be fired immediately, while others defended him as the last line of discipline in a league losing its structure. Instagram lit up with memes of Stefanski screaming, and TikTok flooded with edits of Sanders highlights over captions calling him the future. What was once an internal battle instantly turned into a national circus. And the Browns weren't just trending in Cleveland, they were the punchline across the entire NFL. Every outlet, every podcast, every debate show, suddenly feeding on the chaos. And once the story hit that level, there was no putting it back in the box. The Browns had officially lost control of the narrative. And while the media firestorm raged, the one voice everyone expected to hear stayed silent. Jimmy Haslam, the same owner who couldn't stop praising Shedeur on draft night, suddenly vanished from the spotlight. No press release, no carefully crafted statement, nothing. And that silence was louder than any interview. Inside the building, people said meetings went late into the night, executives scrambling to figure out if they should back the coach, back the rookie, or trade away Gabriel just to kill the controversy. But every path carried massive consequences. Firing Stefanski meant admitting the franchise had no stability. Siding with him meant risking a mutiny in the locker room. And trading Gabriel meant confirming Sanders was the future, no matter what. Haslam's silence told players and fans one thing: the organization had no unified plan. And in the NFL, uncertainty is blood in the water. Rivals sense it. The media feeds on it. And suddenly, the Browns weren't just dealing with a quarterback controversy, they were staring down a franchise-defining crisis with no easy way out. All eyes turned to the very next practice because everyone knew Wednesday wasn't going to feel like football. It was going to feel like theater. Cameras lined up at the gates, reporters camped outside the facility, teammates whispering about whether Shedeur would even show up. And when he did, early, quietly hitting the weight room and film study before most veterans arrived, it sent a clear message he wasn't running from the chaos. Stefanski, meanwhile, had to stand in front of the team and deliver an apology that wasn't really an apology, admitting the confrontation shouldn't have been public but doubling down on the evaluation process. And then practice started with Gabriel still taking first-team snaps, Shedeur right behind him, the tension thick enough to choke on. Players described it as funeral-like, everyone moving through drills, but no one believing things were normal. And outside the gates, AFC North rivals were watching like sharks smelling blood. Baltimore already adjusting defensive schemes to exploit the distraction. Cincinnati licking its chops, knowing Cleveland's focus was shattered. And Pittsburgh fans celebrating online like the Browns had already thrown away their season, because in the NFL, weakness isn't just noticed, it's hunted, and Cleveland had just painted a target on its back. What makes this meltdown even more dangerous is that it isn't just about Cleveland, it's a spotlight on a battle playing out across the entire NFL. The clash between traditional coaching authority and the new wave of player empowerment. Old school coaches still preach patience, hierarchy, and earning your role through years of grinding, but the new generation expects transparency, immediate opportunity, and decisions based purely on performance. Stefanski embodies the first, Sanders represents the second, and their collision is exactly what every other franchise is terrified of. Because when ownership undermines coaching credibility, the locker room fractures. When politics override production, fans lose trust. And when media storms amplify dysfunction, teams collapse under the weight. Every GM and coach around the league is watching this saga unfold as a cautionary tale, whispering privately, "Thank God it's not us." While preparing contingency plans in case it ever happens in their building, Cleveland just became the perfect example of what happens when philosophy, ego, and power all crash into each other in public. And whether they survive it or not, the ripple effect is already spreading across the league. At the end of the day, the Cleveland Browns are standing at a crossroads that could define their entire future. Kevin Stefanski and Shedeur Sanders both want the same thing: to win championships and bring glory back to a franchise starved for success. But their methods, their philosophies, and their pride have collided in a way that has already torn holes in the foundation. The coach believes in process and patience. The rookie represents talent and pressure that simply can't be ignored. And caught in the middle is an organization with no clear direction. Fans deserve better than another chapter in the factory of sadness. Yet here we are watching hope turn into chaos before the season even begins. The truth is, there's no easy win here, only degrees of loss. Fire the coach and you lose credibility. Bench the rookie and you lose the locker room. Back either side and the other feels betrayed. And so the Browns march forward under a storm cloud of dysfunction. Every practice, a new headline. Every press conference, another spark for the fire. And unless something miraculous happens fast, this confrontation will go down not as a bump in the road, but as the exact moment Cleveland destroyed itself from within. Because make no mistake, this isn't just a quarterback controversy. This is the Browns proving once again that their greatest opponent isn't on the field, it's themselves.